Hi, my name is Raleigh Seamster, and I'm a senior program manager with Google Earth Outreach. People all around the world are using Google mapping products to address social and environmental projects in their areas. In the upcoming weeks, we'll be offering some trainings on these tools. Now, many of you may not be familiar with all that Google has to offer, or you might just be overwhelmed by all the options. In this session, we're going to help you navigate all the tools. So first, I will take you on a quick tour of the products and give you a feel for what you might use them for. Then we'll talk about how to choose the right tools for your project and where to go for more training. Before I continue, I'd like to call your attention to two things. The first is the Q&A feature. If you're watching live, you can write your question or questions in the Q&A section below the page. At the end of my talk, we'll move into a live Q&A where I and some of my teammates will be answering your questions live. So please ask lots of questions and stick around for the answers. The second is a link to the slides, which you can find below in the resource section. And then thirdly, there's a link to Journey to Geo for Good, which is the training series I'll be talking about during this session. So you can click that link to see all the trainings you can register for and go ahead and start signing up. So first, let's start with that quick tour. I'm going to start with plus codes, which is a simple but profound idea that assigns a unique digital address to every point on the Earth's surface. We created plus codes to respond to the fact that billions of people live in places around the world where the street addresses that you and I take for granted just don't exist. If you don't have a street address, it makes it harder to do basic things like get a government ID or a bank account, or just to order something online for delivery. With plus codes, a few letters and numbers will identify any point on the Earth's surface. You can get started with using plus codes in Earth and maps and other products today. And we've been working with partners around the world to scale up assigning official codes to homes and working with banks and postal systems to recognize them and more. You can also use plus codes in your own projects to identify anything in the real world. Let's say you're keeping a tracking system of freshwater wells or trees in an urban forest. If you use the plus codes as unique identifiers for each of these objects, then you don't have to worry about keeping track of where they are because the location is built right into the identifier. So there you have it, plus codes, a simple but powerful technology. And I'm sure you'll think of creative ways to use plus codes in your work. Next, I'd like to talk about My Maps. You might already be familiar with My Maps, which is a lightweight mapping tool that is a great option if you want a quick and easy way to put a lightweight and embeddable map online. With Google My Maps, you can draw points, lines, and shapes anywhere on the map, and you can add photos and videos to your places. In addition to drawing on the map, you can also import locations from a spreadsheet or KML file and layer them on the map. Once you're ready, you can share a link to your interactive web map, view your maps on a mobile device, or embed them directly into your web page. Next, I'd like to talk about Google Earth, which just celebrated its 15th birthday last year. Google Earth gives you access to Google's unprecedented database of high-resolution satellite and aerial imagery, 3D terrain data, street view imagery, and much, much more. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, we've heard from many of our users that it's invaluable to have access to not just a picture, but the ability to fly around an area where you might be planning your next field campaign, or to see how an area has changed over time if you're studying some natural or man-made phenomenon. Google Earth exists in 4 flavors: on the web, on Android and iOS mobile devices, and on the desktop, so that you can access this rich resource wherever you are. Google Earth on web includes easy-to-use map-making tools that you can use to draw points, lines, and polygons on the map, similar to My Maps. Also similar to My Maps, you can add your own custom content, like photos and videos. One of the key differences, however, is that you can make use of Google Earth's detailed globe to tilt the map and save the perfect 3D view for your locations, or you can dive into Street View for a 360-degree experience. In a Google Earth project, you can gather info collaboratively with your colleagues and coworkers, like you're in a Google Doc, and then publish it out to the world. You can also organize your places into a narrative order and share your project as a presentation or a guided tour. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Google Earth's younger sibling, Google Earth Studio. Studio has been around for just a few years and brings together the power of Google Earth's rich imagery database into a professional video and animation production environment. We originally created this as a tool for professional video production in the newsroom setting, where you can use Earth Studio to create animations that fly in precise and controlled ways through the world, and then bring the results of that into your 2D or 3D video production workflow. You've probably seen examples of this in many stories that you've seen on TV, in topics from the Olympics to political exposés to natural disasters, you name it. Even though we created this tool originally for video professionals, it's a wonderful way to get started if you've never worked with video before, because you can tap into this really engaging collection of content. Finally, there's Google Earth Engine, a cloud computing platform for geospatial data processing. So we originally started working on Earth Engine with an eye on forest. We created the first high-resolution map of forest loss over time, and then extended it to support the first high-res alerting system for deforestation across the Pan-tropics. But even as we were focusing on deforestation in the early days, we knew the tools we were building could be useful for much, much more. In the years since, we've expanded the platform and reached many thousands of scientists, researchers, and decision makers who are using these tools to conduct research and make decisions in a range of fields. If you're new to Earth Engine, this is a specialized cloud computing tool, bringing together a rich catalog of public data like satellite data, and combining it with tools for slicing and dicing the data, computing statistics, training and applying machine learning models, producing custom visualizations, and then packaging all that up as applications. It's quite powerful, and you can access all those capabilities from JavaScript and Python programming environments. You can know then that behind the scenes, Google's bringing the full power of our parallel computing ability to help you scale your analysis up from the local to national to global scale. Now, not everyone can code, and even for those of us who can write code, it can be a pain sometimes to have to go modify a script every time we want to run a new analysis or a variation. That's why we created Earth Engine Apps, which is a tool that allows you to take any Earth Engine analysis and package it up in a custom graphical interface. So you can then create these apps and share them with your colleagues who may not be familiar with code or running scripts themselves. You can publish them on the web to make your data or some analysis accessible to everyone. Hopefully that gives you a flavor of the Google mapping tools and what you could do to use them. But now you might be feeling overwhelmed. How do you figure out which of these is the right fit for your needs? Let's talk about a few questions you might want to consider as you're choosing which tools to adopt. So I often find myself sitting across from a nonprofit or researcher who is considering what tool to use for their project. I'd likely start by asking what their use case is. That is, how are they planning to use the mapping tool in their project? Are they looking for a tool for digital addressing? Are they looking for something that allows them to annotate the map with place marks, lines, and polygons? There are several different common use cases that we run across, and I'm going to go into each of these in more detail in a few minutes. But for any given one of these use cases, there's likely going to be more than one tool that could be a good fit. So then how do we help organizations narrow it down even further? And that's really where the next two questions come in. So once we're able to narrow down the options to a few tools that might be a good fit for a use case, we'll want to understand what technical skill set is the individual or the team working on the project bringing to the table. The reason for this is that you can look at Google tools the same way you'd look at a restaurant menu. Some tools are going to be a lot spicier than others, meaning that Some tools may be more difficult to use without a certain type of technical background. In my menu analogy, some tools like My Maps or Google Earth are going to be very mild. So they don't require coding ability and are very easy to use, even if you don't have a technical or GIS background prior to picking them up. But when it comes to a tool like Google Earth Studio, things get a little spicier. A tool like Google Earth Studio was built with professional animators in mind. So we might be more likely to recommend this tool to people who have some of those animation concepts already in mind. However, there's some things you can do in Google Earth Studio without even needing that experience. Finally, we have our spiciest tool, Google Earth Engine. So again, this is a geospatial analysis platform intended for scientists and researchers with a remote sensing background and the ability to code in either JavaScript or Python. I should stop and note that even if you really want to use a tool that requires a skill set you don't currently have, please don't let that be a game ender. You can upskill with our trainings. You can look into hiring a developer for your project, or you can form a collaboration with another organization that does have that skill set. Beyond technical experience, the third question you'll want to consider is your audience. Who will be consuming the map or the application you're building, and how? Do you want your audience to be able to passively consume your map, like sitting back and watching a presentation or a video, or do you want them interacting with your map in order to get insights or make a decision? Maps created using My Maps or Earth Engine apps are interactive and can be embedded in your website. So these could be great solutions if you want your audience to be able to interact with your map in your own website. Google Earth, on the other hand, can be used to arrange your map into a narrative order, and it has a present button so that you can take your audience on a guided tour of your content. So this might be a better fit if you want to give your audience presentations. Finally, if you want to be able to reach your audience through the medium of video, let's say you have a sizable YouTube audience you want to reach, you might want to consider using Google Earth Studio to create custom animations. Now that I've walked through these three questions, let's get back to that first question about use cases. And the first use case I want to talk about is digital addressing. So organizations that want to assign digital addresses, say, to households that don't currently have street addresses. If you want to tackle an addressing project, then I think the choice is pretty clear. Pluscodes is going to be the Google technology tool that we'd recommend for this situation. Another common use case would be organizations that want to annotate the map, meaning they want to drop place marks or draw lines and polygons to highlight different locations. Examples of this could include community or participatory mapping projects, documenting the location of development activities in relation to protected areas or habitats, or even just making a simple map of where your project locations are. The list can go on and on. I'd likely recommend My Maps or Google Earth for this use case because they both include drawing tools for marking up the map or satellite imagery with points, lines, and polygons. If you're trying to decide between the two, I'd say one major difference is that My Maps would be a flat 2D map, while Google Earth is 3D. So if you need that added layer of rich detail, such as the slope and the terrain, in order to spot the places you want to mark up, you might want to use Google Earth instead of My Maps. We can also apply the technical skill set lens to this decision. Does either tool need any special skills or experience in order to use? The answer is neither requires coding or special technical skills to use. So the skills question is not really going to be a deal breaker in this situation. Then finally, the third question about audience. So who is going to be using the output and how? If you want the final product to be featured on your website, then I'd probably recommend My Maps because My Maps can be easily embedded on websites. With Google Earth, you can share a public link to your project, but you can't embed it in a website. However, on the other hand, if you think you'll mainly be wanting to use this map in presentations, then Google Earth might be the better choice because it's such an immersive, compelling platform, and you can set up your map to be presented in a narrative order that would be a great fit for a presentation to an audience. Another use case is team coordination. So in this situation, teams might want to use maps to help coordinate team or volunteer efforts for crisis response, for doing field surveys, or perhaps they're coordinating volunteers on an invasive species removal project. I'd likely recommend those two tools, Earth and MyMaps, again in this situation. So as we already know, each of these tools could be used to display the locations you need to brief your team about. And if we're trying to choose between the two, I'd say Google Earth is likely going to be more useful when it's really important to brief your team about the landscape they'll be working in. So for example, if you wanted to point out certain aspects of the slope or terrain and that they'll need to be aware of in order to be safe and effective in the field. On the other hand, might recommend MyMaps if you need a more lightweight option and understanding the terrain and landscape is not super essential to the team's success in the field. Another common use case is analysis and measurement. So in this example, organizations may want to analyze the potential impacts of a development project on the surrounding habitat, or maybe they want to measure the rate of deforestation in an area over time. Google Earth Engine is an incredibly robust platform for Earth science data and analysis. So it's likely that we'll probably recommend Earth Engine for any heavy duty remote sensing analysis work, especially on a large scale, like a planetary scale. However, Google Earth Engine does require some technical experience to use. So it's also worth noting that Google Earth offers some simple measurement tools that might be worth checking out, including the ability to measure areas and distances. Finally, the last use case I want to touch on is storytelling and communication. So let's say your organization wants to raise awareness about the challenges facing a protected area, or help decision makers understand how sea levels may rise over time. Almost all our tools can be very useful for storytelling and communication, so how do you choose? This is where that skill set and the audience question can really help you narrow it down. So MyMaps and Google Earth, both no-code solutions for storytelling and communication. So I'd be likely to recommend these if your organization isn't bringing that technical skill set and just wants a super easy way to tell stories or communicate with maps. I'd probably recommend MyMaps for situations where you just need a very simple web map, or maybe you want to layer several different data sets onto one map for a data visualization. I'd recommend Google Earth in situations where you want to be able to present your map in a compelling, immersive way, or maybe it's really important for your audience to understand the context of a place in a landscape, its terrain and slope and things like that. Google Earth would be best for storytelling and communication if you want to create a final product that's more like a movie or a film. And as long as you have some animation experience or are willing to try, this would be a great fit for you. Finally, while Google Earth Engine does require coding skills to use, remember that there are Earth Engine apps, which are a way to package up your work into an application that your audience who does not code can use in order to explore your data. Hopefully, as I've been talking, you've been able to zero in on like maybe one or more tools that you think might suit your project needs and you want to learn a little bit more about. I've included one summary slide here with a few key words for each tool I'm hoping will help you remember what's unique about each tool, as you go back to your work and might forget some parts of the presentation. This is a good reminder for what's different and unique about each tool. So for the next 6 weeks, we'll be hosting a training series called Journey to Geo for Good that will dive deeper on all of the tools I've covered here today. You can click on the link to Journey to Geo for Good right below this video to open up the training series page and explore all the offerings. Click on any event, and then you can click the register button in order to register to attend. If you're interested in MyMaps, then there are 2 sessions, getting started with MyMaps, which will cover all of the basics of creating a simple map, and then data visualization in MyMaps, which will cover how to create more advanced data visualizations by importing spreadsheets and KML files. There's no technical experience needed to get the most out of either of these sessions. If you'd like to learn more about plus codes for addressing projects, then register for Getting Started with Plus Codes. Again, no technical experience required for this session. If you'd like to learn more about Google Earth for viewing and annotating Google's imagery database, register for Getting Started with Google Earth. If you'd like to learn more about using that same imagery database to create videos and animations, then you can attend Getting Started with Google Earth Studio. No technical experience is needed for the Google Earth session, and although some animation experience is helpful for using Earth Studio, this session will be completely tailored for beginners without any animation experience. So please don't be scared to take this session. Finally, we're offering 5 sessions on Google Earth Engine to cover some of the scope of its functionality, and that's really just scratching the surface. The first session is going to be Getting Started with Earth Engine that will introduce you to the platform and its 2 development environments, the Code Editor and Code Lab. The second session is Analyzing a Landsat 8 image in Earth Engine. This will teach you how to explore, compare, and leverage Landsat 8 image bands in Earth Engine. The next session is Image Classification in Earth Engine, which will demonstrate how to get started with a land cover classification. Then Animating Imagery in Earth Engine will show you how to convert Earth observation data from the Earth Engine data catalog into time-lapse animations. And then finally, Publishing an Earth Engine app will show you how to take any Earth Engine analysis and package it up in an application that makes your data accessible to anyone to explore. So these classes will be a bit spicier in terms of technical knowledge and coding and remote sensing background assumed. So we've assigned a spiciness rating with the red chili peppers here to help you kind of navigate what might be right for you. But, you know, if you pick up new things quickly, don't be afraid to give it a try. You can always watch the session multiple times and pause or rewind if concept is new to you. So this brings us to the end of the pre-recorded talk. I hope you enjoyed my talk and feel a little bit more comfortable navigating all the tools now. So let's dive into that live Q&A. Hi everyone. So welcome. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening to my talk. And now we're transitioning to the live Q&A. I hope you've had a chance to ask questions. If not, please look for the blue button under the video. It says ask a question. You can click that, type in your question. You know, we're looking for them to come in. We're hoping to answer all your questions here today. In the meantime, I wanted to welcome my teammates, Karen and Dave Shah, and give a quick introduction. So Karen leads the Google Earth Outreach Program and Project AirView, Google's effort to map air quality using Street View vehicles equipped with air sensors. Her background includes over 20 years working in GIS and remote sensing technologies. And she's been with Outreach since 2008, so she's kind of seen it all. Welcome, Karen.
Hello.
And then Dave Shah is also joining us today. She is also a program manager on the outreach team. She leads our India program, working with NGOs, researchers, and local bodies in India. And she comes to us with a nonprofit and IT background. So welcome, Dave Shah.
Thank you, Raleigh. And hello to anyone who's joining and watching from India.
Thank you. Okay, so it looks like we've got a couple of questions already, but first I just wanted to kind of warm things up. And I was curious, Karen, Deja, how do you feel about pop quizzes?
They're fun.
I'm excited.
Are you ready to have your knowledge tested? Okay. So what I'm actually going to do is I am going to launch a poll on our event page. So for those of you in the audience, in a few minutes, you'll see a little poll appear to the right of the video. And it's going to be giving you kind of a scenario of someone who's trying to decide what tools they want to use. And we're going to help them choose their own adventure. But first, we're curious what the audience thinks. So in this first scenario, I'm a researcher and I'm looking at the impacts of invasive species around Cape Town, South Africa. I'd like to map out a specific type of invasive tree that's taking over. Which tool should I use? And the options we're giving you are Google My Maps, Google Earth, and Google Earth Engine. So again, you should be able to find this poll to the right of the video, and you can click on either My Maps, Earth, or Earth Engine to guess which tool might be the best fit for this researcher. There are no wrong answers. I should just say that ahead of time, so don't be afraid. Please cast your vote, and we'll come back and look at the results and discuss them in just a few minutes. But in the meantime, while we're waiting, Devja, any questions that have come in from the audience that we should discuss?
Yeah, we have quite a few questions. I think I just wanted to first start with talking about something you shared in your presentation, Raleigh. And you mentioned that when someone's trying to figure out what tool is right for a project to use, they should consider three factors, which is the use case, the skill set, and the audience. I'm curious, Raleigh and Karen, do you think there are any other factors that our users should also consider when figuring out the right tool?
I do have one factor that comes to mind, and I know I made the set of factors to consider, but for brevity, I only included three. One other one that I was thinking about, though, as I kind of prepared the talk, was time. How much time do you have for your project? Is it an urgent need? Like there's a wildfire and you need to communicate information about where it's happening right away to your constituents or your citizens? Or is this going to be like a long-term research project and, you're going to have time to put together a proposal and seek funding and collaborators and so on. So I think that this could really influence which tool you choose. Like in the first scenario, if it's like a really quick map, you don't have a lot of time and you just need something super functional, I'd probably choose a tool like My Maps because it's the quickest to get started with. It's super easy and fast to make a map and have it on your website, in a matter of hours. Where some of the other tools might, take a little bit more time to fully realize your project. And Karen, do you have any other factors that you would probably urge someone to consider when they're thinking about which tool?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there are a lot of times, and this kind of gets into the skill set a little bit. There are a lot of times where Earth Engine may be the right choice, but it's going to take you a while to get up to speed. There are, certain times where it may be easier to, basically draw an area. Say if there's a clear-cut area that's been deforested, draw it and measure that area in Earth, Google Earth, for example. Whereas, doing an Earth Engine would allow you to actually do it in a scientific data science way and not be eyeballing it. So if you don't have time to learn how to do that in Earth Engine, then doing that in Google Earth would be the faster way. So it really depends, I think, on not just time on when you need to get that project delivered, but how much time do you have to do to like learn and massage the work to what you want.
No, that's great.
So time plus one.
Devsha, is there anything you would add?
Yeah, I think like just thinking of partners that I work very closely, sometimes even like constraints of the environment that they're in. Because a lot of times there might be areas where you have to work offline or where, you need to be able to get your data in a certain space and then come back and work in a remote setup. So, yeah, I think just also being aware of the environment that you're working in, and depending on that, yeah, you might have to sort of come back and also come back to the drawing board, work with an offline tool, and then sort of bring your data back to either My Maps or Earth. So yeah.
Awesome. While we've been discussing the question, I see that the results of the poll have come in. So it looks like about 59% of people thought Google Earth Engine might be the best for mapping invasive species. Then 22% voted for My Maps and 18% for Earth. So My Maps and Earth kind of tied there as like second contenders. So I was curious to ask this question, both Karen and Devsha. I know this scenario doesn't give the most information about like what the skill set of the researcher is and so on, but Yeah, if a researcher came to you and said they were trying to map the impacts of invasive species, like what would your questions be? What might you advise?
I mean, I can quickly say that when I first read this question, I immediately thought Google Earth Engine, because Google Earth Engine allows you to apply remote sensing principles to the value of what the imagery is. They'd be able to see, you'd be able to train the algorithm to say, okay, this is the invasive species, this is the invasive species, this is the invasive species, then run the algorithm to see, where is there the invasive species versus not, or whatnot. And that's just basically training a remote sensing classifier, right? However, I have seen many people successfully use Google My Maps and Google Earth to just delineate where they see invasive species. Sometimes, an entire PhD could be spent trying to detect invasive species, and you only get, an average accuracy, because your accuracy doesn't end up becoming, very high, because it's a very difficult thing for a remote sensing satellite to see some invasive species. It has to really be able to be seen, or you have to have the right data, maybe hyperspectral data, to be able to really tweak it out. And so there are some use cases of invasive species where Google Earth and My Maps and drawing what you see as a human, right? Drawing where you see that invasive species. So in those cases, My Maps and Earth can be successful ways to do that. But if you're doing it across the entire continent or entire country, and you're using hyper spectral data or hyper local, all this other stuff, really you want the machine to do that learning. And so Earth Engine is the tool for you if that's the case. Deja, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, this takes me back to a project that a student was working on with Atri, and what you described as the activity of drawing is actually a way that she gathered training data for her model. So, it's not just, it can be a quick fix, but it can also sort of serve a longer term purpose where, the data that you draw out is used back to train your model.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and I would add there, I've definitely remember some organizations that were mapping invasive species by, going out on the land or going down a river and looking at the riverbank and taking, like, maybe they just have a simple GPS device on their phone, or, a logger, and taking those GPS points along the way. And then potentially a tool like My Maps or Google Earth could be a great tool just to visualize those points on a satellite image and, look at where they are, maybe to inform your research. Maybe then you end up taking a screenshot from Google Earth and putting it in your publication or something like that. So I definitely think, this is one of those cases where all of the answers could be the right answer, maybe multiple answers. As Deja mentioned, maybe you're using, Google My Maps in connection with Earth Engine or something like that. So yeah. So while we've been discussing this example, are there any other questions coming in from the audience we should answer?
Yeah. So we have an interesting question from Ted, who seems to be interested in learning more about plus codes. His question is, do plus codes have a different accuracy than regular coordinates in Google Maps? Karen, since you're our in-house plus codes expert, do you want to take this?
Well, to be clear, there are other people that are bigger experts than I am on our team, but I'm going to venture to answer this in this group. So yeah, okay. So plus codes are based on a coordinate system or coordinate a grid that is based on latitude, longitude. It's basically a more human readable version of latitude, longitude, where it divides different latitude, longitude grids up in smaller and smaller and smaller grid cells or squares that represent where the centroid of that is, or the polygon of that is represented by the entire plus codes. And so because of that, you can easily put it on an application or put it on a mailing address, the entire plus code, instead of the latitude, longitude with the degrees and the decimals and everything. And so plus codes is a more human readable, more machine readable a system. And so it's as accurate as latitude, longitude to a point where it gets down to, 3 by 3 meters, 2 by 2 meters. It keeps going further and further down. More information is available on the support tab if you go to plus codes. or maps.google.com/pluscodes, and you go to support, you can see that you can expand all the questions and then search for coordinates and find more information there. There's a detail around what each of the different signs and letters mean in the plus code and how they kind of track and connect to the latitude longitude grid. So more information there. And I encourage you to, there's going to be a deeper dive for plus codes in the journey to the summit. And so you'll be able to come, with all of your questions, even deeper questions. And that's where we'll have the Uber experts in the room to answer your specific question. But thanks for that question. I think that's a common question, common wonder about how you crosswalk between lat long and plus codes.
Awesome. So before we take another question from the audience, just want to point out there's a second poll up to the right of the video. So I have another scenario for y'all. I work at a nonprofit, the Friends of Tiger Mountain State Forest in Washington State. I want to get citizens, Washingtonians who live nearby, excited about this beautiful place. And I also want their support for a new restoration project that we're proposing. So which tool should I use? Google Earth, Google Earth Studio, or Google My Maps? Again, no wrong answers. Cast your vote on which tool you think might be the right one. And again, you can find this quiz to the right of the video. With that in mind, Dave, while people are voting, any other questions we should get to?
Yeah, I think just to build off of the first question we had today, do you think cost is a factor at all that a user should be considering when they're deciding what tools to choose?
Ooh, that is a great question. The tools that were covered in the presentation are free for non-commercial use. So I guess first off, there's not a factor like you have to pay for one of these tools if you're using it, as a nonprofit or a researcher for public benefit. But of course, you have to think about staff time, right? If you're part of an organization, like how much time, because that is, I guess, money.
That's
too,
also a cost, yeah.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah, Karen or Dave, any other things you would think to comment on about cost?
I would add that if the data, so Earth Engine Data Catalog has a ton of open and free data from government institutions and groups that have made their data free out there. So you can definitely go into Earth Engine and see what's there. And if all that data, like all the Sentinel and Landsat and land cover and census data, just a ton of data in the Earth Engine Data Catalog, if it doesn't suit your needs, you're going to have to go find that data. And if it's free, great, you can go get it and download it and upload it to Google Earth Engine to use with your algorithm development. But if it's not free, if there's a data set, a specific image that you want to license and get access to through a different provider, then you'll have to pay for that, if that's the data that you need for your project. So you want to think about that as well. Yeah, I think that's the only other add-on I would say.
Got it.
Raleigh, do we have time for one more question?
Oh yeah, we have a few more minutes. So please,
okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so this is a bit of a longer question from the audience, and it's kind of broad-ended. So I'm curious to know what you both think. This question is, how can Google tools be used together in one project, and especially if it's a new project that you're just starting out? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely lots of ways to combine them. I mean, I'll start out with like a pretty simple example. So Google Earth and Google Earth Studio. Maybe in Google Earth Studio, you want to create a beautiful animation of, flying through a landscape, but you want to display some data on that landscape, like a, certain data set that you have. So a data set could be created in Google Earth and saved as a KML file and then brought into Google Earth Studio as an overlay. So all of these tools, there's definitely things that you can do to have them work in coordination with each other. That's just one example. I bet Karen and Deja have some others.
I mean, I will say that we're always working to integrate them even more, right? So that it makes it easier. So there's always work underway to connect the different tools more easily for everybody out there and for us too. Another example that I see all the time is wanting to basically build an Earth Engine analysis in Earth Engine and then export it as tiles or export it as KML, and then displaying that in Google Earth. And there is a tool that allows you to do that inside the Google Earth code, that allows you to like if once you build a model or build an algorithm in Earth Engine, your result you want to put on Earth to share with the world. So that's another example of how that you can pull your analysis into Earth for communication. Anything else, Deja?
Yeah, I think just building onto that, like for folks who miss the map view in Earth, like just embedding like with HTML code, like trying to embed a my map or even adding in links to maps, especially if there's a space where you want to compare like the satellite view and the map view. I think there have been some interesting creation tool stories that have come off of that. So yeah.
Awesome. So I see the results of our poll have come in about the person who wants to get Washingtonians excited about the state forest. So it looks like Google Earth Studio was the winner with 57% of the votes. Next was Google Earth with 31%, and then finally My Maps with 10%. So yeah, again, the scenario is I'm working at a nonprofit. I want to get people excited about our state forest, and I also am trying to propose a restoration project. Maybe I want to get votes on a petition or signatures on a petition, or I'm looking for funding. So like, which tool, Karen and Deja, do you think you'd recommend?
Do you want to go first, Deja?
No, sorry, go for it.
Okay, I'll go first. So when I first saw this, I immediately thought Google Earth, because that is really the immersive storytelling tool. You can create a story to talk about your project, to talk about why this restoration project is important, talk about before, talk about after, like, add pictures, let them know how important it is, have pictures of the wildlife, etc. Tiger Mountain. No, but other wildlife. There's no tigers there, but different types of wildlife and why it's important, and talk about the ecosystem. And so if and then you can basically promote that on social media. People can open it on Google Earth on their phone, view it, or on their desktop, and more. And that really immerses people in the problem. But if I wanted then to be able to share a video on YouTube, a fly through, maybe add some audio, or if I wanted to create a visual and share it with my local broadcaster, then I would want to use Earth Studio. So it really depends on how you want to reach your people. Like you probably wouldn't create an Earth Studio. Well, maybe you would if you want to put it on YouTube, but having somebody be able to explore it, that's when you, for themselves, and view the photos and everything, that's what you'd want to use Google Earth for. So I'm kind of tied between those two. I would say do both. What do you
I was
think,
going to
David?
say, this kind of like goes back to the previous question about tying things together into one project. Like you might want to create your map in Earth, but then, bring it as a KML file overlay into Earth Studio to create the video.
Yeah. And then I'll also say that, back in the day and still today, we see a lot of people using Google My Maps to do operational things and engage donors or engage volunteers. In fact, on our tutorial page way back in 2008, 2009, our example was a beach cleanup. And if you wanted volunteers to come on a Saturday, they would come and, we'd say, okay, the blue team meets here, the purple team meets here, and we're going to walk down the beach and clean up the trash this way. And so that's a way to engage people in a different way, even though it may not be intended for the masses. You are engaged so that they kind of know, okay, here's where we're going and here's what I'm going to be doing. And it's a lot more kind of, just a different type of communication tool there.
Yeah, I mean, I might add to that mind maps could be good exactly for what you say, engagement. So like maybe your goal is to get people recreating in the state forest. So you make a mind map of some different places that you want people to visit. And the nice thing about mind maps is that you can load it on your Google Maps app on your Android or iOS phone. So people could actually use it to kind of navigate while they're out there. So it may be a great solution if you just want to get more people enjoying the park.
That's a great idea. Or
Yeah.
adding to it, right? Like add your location.
I was just gonna say, crowdsourcing is like really the power of mind maps. If you wanna get a guessing game or like a treasure hunt or even something fun where you want everyone to sort of be involved in the activity.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I think that we're getting close to time. Devja, is there like one last question we could squeeze in?
Yeah. The absolute last question. And this is a little specific to Earth Studio. You mentioned that the animation experience is really useful for using Google Earth Studio, but also that it might not be necessary. Can you talk a little bit about how someone might be able to leverage Earth Studio even if they're not a professional animator?
Yeah, I can take that one. So Earth Studio has these awesome things called quick starts, which is basically a way you can create a project in Earth Studio. And then you can select from some very, I guess, popular camera movements that the professional animators use. But you don't have to understand frame rate animation in order to use them, and camera paths and things like that. You can just say like, I want to orbit around a place, or I want to fly from a point to a point, or spiral around a place. There's several different options you can choose. And then you can plug in which location it is you want to do that camera movement around. So it kind of gives you those building blocks where you can create your own amazing animation without even knowing how, anything about like using animation software or anything like that. And then you can export those as a video. So that's why I encourage people to take the Google Earth Studio session, even if you're like, oh, I don't know about this animation studio thing. So I know we're running over time. We haven't gotten to all the questions on the Q&A, but we'll get to those now. We'll answer those in writing, even though our video is ending. So if you ask a question we didn't get to it, we'll get to it right away, right after this ends. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much to the audience for joining today's session, and a special thank you to Karen and Devja for lending your expertise.
And to Raleigh. Thank you, Raleigh.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. And so we hope you're inspired to keep learning. Please tune in to all of the events we've got coming up. As I mentioned before, we have a ton of trainings over the next 6 weeks in the lead up to the Geo for Good Summit. And you can see all those trainings and register for them by clicking on the Journey to Geo for Good link directly under the video. And then lastly, don't forget to apply to attend our Geo for Good Summit that happens in November. The link to apply is also under the video. So thanks again, everyone, and goodbye for now.
Thanks. Bye.